Hello and welcome to another episode of a weekly Waypoint. Today we are playing a custom match in Fortnite called Sponge Gun Game, which is gun game, one-shot kills in Bikini Bottom from SpongeBob SquarePants. It's pretty fun. Full disclosure, this is my second take recording this because, listening back to my original take, I'm having a pretty, I would say, ADHD day in terms of actually being able to finish my sentences, and I did not think it was a good viewing experience. So, from the top. As you are probably all aware by now, last week was rife with a bunch of rumours about Xbox basically making most of their exclusives available on other platforms, most if not all. I was minding my own business around a time of the internet exploding about this. I was playing Final Fantasy III, I was playing Persona 3 Reload, I was playing Final Fantasy XIV, more on those later. But I looked up at some point from my gaming and I saw that the internet was talking about this kind of thing, and I'll be honest, my original first thought was, that would be interesting. And then I went back to what I was doing. Then, later, I looked up a second time and went, oh, the internet's on fire. Phil Spencer's put out a statement and everything. So you may be wondering, Christian, why aren't you screaming about this? Christian, why aren't you running around with your head on fire talking about this? It's the end of days. Xbox is coming to an end. It's the end of everything. There's going to be no Xbox exclusives. What's the point of owning an Xbox anymore? Blah, 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 blah. First of all, I should mention I'm recording this at 2 p.m. UK time on Monday. So if they come out with their business update between now and the video publishing, I am completely powerless to stop that, and this is going to sound probably quite redundant or out of date. However, here's my take on things. I think Xbox are going to come out and say that basically it's going to be more worth it for them in the long run to have their games selling on multiple platforms in terms of money, and they can still continue to push Xbox's superiority as a platform by saying that while you have to spend £60-70 on our game on other platforms, you can just play them on Xbox Game Pass if you own an Xbox or PC. Now here's my hot take, which in my opinion really shouldn't be a hot take. Around the time of the PS4 and Xbox One generation being a thing, and exclusives really ramping up to be the big selling point of these different consoles, I was fairly vocal in being against this, because here's the thing. While I get that there's always going to be some exclusives, right? Developers have a right to develop for whatever platforms they want to, and during the PS1 and PS2 era, and I would say maybe half of the PS3 era, that had mostly been what was happening. This era of first-party developed exclusive titles to compete with the other platform, I don't think is something that we as consumers should be championing. Obviously, it's the business thing to do, right? Hey, we're Xbox and we want you to buy an Xbox, so we're going to make Xbox exclusives. Or I guess in our case, buy people and make their titles exclusive so that you have a reason to come and buy our platform, obviously. But as a consumer, why do we champion this? Like, beyond the obvious reason, which I'm getting to, which is tribalism, why is it a good thing for us to only have half of, I guess it's not quite a half skew, let's be honest, but why is it a good thing for us to not have access to the other platform's best video games? I've never understood it from our point of view. It is tribalism, plain and simple. PlayStation sucks because PlayStation can't play Halo. Xbox sucks because Xbox doesn't even have God of War. You don't even know what a good game looks like. I'm just going to cut in here real quick to contradict myself, because I just listened to this back and a dreadful idea occurred to me. I did suddenly think, without competition in terms of making fantastic first-party exclusive titles, maybe they won't bother making fantastic first-party exclusive titles, and that would be bad for everyone. Maybe I've overlooked the point of, well, God of War wouldn't exist as such a high-budget, fantastic title if they weren't trying to lure people over to PlayStation, away from Xbox exclusives. Maybe in that sense, I'm missing out on the whole, well, the competition was good angle of things, and that is something I will consider going forwards. Now, let's be real. A lot of people on the internet are 12 years old, and if I was 12 years old, how would I feel about these rumours? And if I was an Xbox player at 12 years old, I should add, I would probably be taking to the internet, decrying the end of days, because my green console is about to lose the exclusives fight, which is the fight to win if you're 12 years old, I guess. But it's not all 12-year-olds, it's 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds, well, maybe not 40-year-olds, they might be busy doing their taxes or whatever. Listen, I'm 28, from where I'm sitting, 40-year-olds are the real adults in the room. My basic thing is most people can't afford to have an Xbox and a PlayStation, I certainly can't. And if PlayStation were coming out and announcing this business strategy, which of course would make no sense from PlayStation's point of view right now, but you know what I mean, I would be ecstatic. I would love to not have to wait a year to play the Final Fantasy games on PC, even though I'm privileged to be able to play them on PC. That's probably a weird example because, to the best of my knowledge, that's not a first-party thing. But, I would love to be able to play God of War. I would love to be able to play, what's Ghost of Tsushima like? Obviously, we can't just go ahead assuming that Xbox's business strategy is going to work out for them and that we should trust them. We all remember the Xbox One business strategy at launch, or I guess before launch. But I think we have to hope that what they're doing is right for Xbox, because if it is, it only means good things for gaming in general. Like, this isn't a change which, to the best of my knowledge, is going to affect anyone's livelihoods working in the games industry, which is mostly the news we get nowadays. The only thing this is going to change is that you're going to be able to talk about Starfield with your blue console loving friends. You're going to be able to talk about Forza. Oh my god, imagine if they put Forza on PlayStation. I hadn't considered that one yet. I think Gran Turismo might still win out on that front, actually. But it's just more option. It's more open opportunity. It's good. It's good stuff, and assuming it's going to be good stuff for the long run, then I don't see why we should all be flailing around like it's the end of days. It is certainly a big decision that warrants a lot of conversation, but the actual tone of that conversation I've been watching has been kind of embarrassing in my point of view. Says the man who just said, in my point of view. Anyway, now comes the portion of the video where we talk about the games that I've been playing this week, and we do not stray from the script mid-sentence every other sentence. I don't actually have a script, that was a metaphor, don't worry. If this was scripted, you would be able to tell. My tone of voice when I read... If you want to see what I sound like when I'm reading something scripted, go listen to the top 10 games that I played during 2024 or 2023 videos. Those are scripted. And the tangent you just heard is what there were 20 of in take 1. This week, I have been playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV, and you may be saying, Christian, I thought you were already playing a lot of Final Fantasy XIV. Yes I was, but I've just discovered fishing, and I'm completely, hooked. You know when you realise the thing you're about to say is a pun, like halfway through the sentence, and you just can't stop it from happening? I've tried to get into fishing in Final Fantasy XIV before, but I found it a little bit daunting, a little bit too realistic for my tastes. I didn't love having to find different types of bait for different kinds of fishing holes and not knowing what takes what, and yeah, I don't think it's the best system from the outset, but when you get into it, and you discover that versatile lures are a thing... Lures? Fishing is downright delightful, especially ocean fishing, and I've been doing that because it is something that awards a lot of Mogtomes in the latest event. The way Final Fantasy XIV handles these Moogle treasure collection events, by the way, is a little strange because the only rewards they give you are ones that you can already obtain in the game via other methods, such as a reputation grind or some piece of content that takes a lot. It's usually stuff that, to be fair, is you would have to spend a lot of time grinding it out. But I just feel like when I buy a mount that is already available in the game from another method, I am just robbing myself of a reason to interact with that other thing in the game to do. Like, why would I fully grind up a reputation that I've already got the final mount for, or whatever, I get that this is probably an approach to stop the fear of missing out with exclusive event rewards. I would like to see them maybe do it the other way around, where they introduce mounts and pets and glamours to the game through the events, and then they go away for an indeterminate amount of time, and then they are later available through another method. Not the shop, but like through another method of gameplay. Anyway, this week I've also been starting Final Fantasy III, and I am a little bit conflicted about Final Fantasy III's job system, because the final fantasy as it were, would be, oh, I want this character to specialize as this job, and maybe later on be like, oh, there's a better version of this job later on. Like in the original Final Fantasy, before they were called jobs, you started out as like a red mage and then you became a red wizard or whatever. That was pretty cool. So far, the job system in Final Fantasy III that I am noticing, and that I've been informed is kind of a case in later games as well to a lesser extent, is, oh, you need to be versatile and swap between different jobs for different points in time. Because there's going to be a time when you need to shrink your entire party, and when you have shrink as a status effect, you don't do any melee damage, so everyone needs to be a spellcaster. But I'm like, but I want the main character in my party to be a warrior, and that's like his character. It's weird to have a warrior who is then also sometimes a black mage. I don't know. And I've also been finding Final Fantasy III quite frustrating in terms of like those sections where it's like, oh, you need to cast Shrink on your entire party and deal with the job swapping portion. Oh, you need to cast Toad on your entire party, and it's like, if you mismanage your MP for the person who's casting that, then it causes issues where you have to backtrack and find an inn or whatever. Or if you cast it too early because you didn't realise there were random encounters in the cave, then it's like, great, now I've got to go through an entire cave getting my ass kicked because I can't do any damage or retreat, and it's just... It is a faff. Final Fantasy 3 so far has been a faff, and I'm not enjoying it nearly as much as I've been enjoying Final Fantasy 2, which is something I never thought I would say going into this project. That being said, Final Fantasy 3 does still have things which make it interesting. For the most part, I'm just missing having 4 main characters, or I guess 3 main characters, who are actually characters in the story. We've gone back to, like, completely player-made characters, and so they're kind of very archetypal, they're very minimalistic in terms of actually having, dialogue in the open world with other characters. So, yeah, not having the best first impression of Final Fantasy 3, but I do still intend to power through it. I just might end up making use of the XP boost systems which they introduced in a recent update. Oh, in other news, there's a big sale on Final Fantasy games on Steam right now, and I've already spent my gaming budget for the month, so that is kind of painful for me. I did pick up Final Fantasy 7 because it was like £4, and I crazily do not own that game, and I was like, oh, okay, just to kind of say, like, what I really want to do if I had the money is just buy all the games I'm missing, like 7, I already have 8 for some reason, but 7, 9, 10 and 10-2, 12, 13, 13-2, 13 Lightning Returns, and then I think that would be, I have 15 on Xbox, but that would be every game. I think I would own every single one, apart from 11, but that's a different story. But there's other sales, so it's not the end of the world. Oh shit, that was another tangent. No, back on track, back on track! Now, not to over-explain videos which I've already put up on this channel, but you may remember a video I put up which is basically an update on all my YouTube series, and it was also a video about the different spreadsheets I've been making. In that video I tabbed over to my books section, which looked rather pitiful because I just had the books that I'm currently reading, the 6 books which I'm currently reading, which is partially what I'm going to be talking about later. But I decided yesterday, and the day before I think, to finally go through and give it the treatment that the other sheets on that overall spreadsheet have, which is including past things that I've already completed. Feels weird to say completed in terms of reading a book, but you know what I mean. And so while, again, it's not completely finished yet, I have got most of the books I have read throughout the entirety of my life in a single spreadsheet, which is kind of a wild thing to have. And just like making the spreadsheet for the different shows I've watched made me want to resub to Netflix and watch more shows, I had a very similar effect when compiling this book spreadsheet. I've already talked ad nauseum about my potential ADHD, that I am on a 5-year waiting list to get diagnosed. But I've said before how I think it's the reason why I find books so hard to read, but I was thinking, why is it that I didn't always have this problem? I've put it down to the fact that I always used to read when I went to bed as a kid. So, you know, I would go to bed, and I would read a book, and I would go to sleep. And that is why I successfully read so many books. Whereas nowadays, when I go to bed, I scroll social media, or I watch a YouTube series on my iPad, or I, very occasionally, play some sort of mobile gacha game on my iPad. More on that later, by the way. So I've decided to try and make it so that when I go to bed, I don't do any of those things. Those things can be daytime activities. When I go to bed, it is going to be book reading time only. Turns out that is actually something that's quite difficult to establish, and I've had limited success with it so far, but I have had limited success with it so far. You may remember a previous solution of mine was to go the audiobook route, and that's primarily how I've been reading through the Wheel of Time series, but I'm on book 10, and there is only so many times I can listen to someone adjust their skirts, or adjust their shawl, or tug on their goddamn braid. Nynaeve, please, I want to continue the plot. And because I'm usually listening to that while I'm walking to work or something, sometimes I'm like, oh, I need to listen to something that's actually going to take my mind off of, work, or I need to listen to something that's going to, motivate me to continue walking to work. So a lot of the time that stuff gets shelved, and that's why sometimes I stop listening to Wheel of Time for like 2 to 3 months at a time. So if you've been listening to the Weekly Waypoint for the last year or so, you may remember me talking about picking up the first book of Swords on Kindle and being like, hey, I might try reading Kindle books again. So I've been continuing to read the first book of Swords. I'm about halfway through that book now, and it's pretty damn good. That being said, I did say I had met with limited success. So, confession time. I've been looking at the Dragon Quest Tactics icon on my iPad screen since I got the thing, and I thought, you know what, I'm in a real Dragon Quest mood at the minute. I might as well check it out. I have an unspoiled track record right now of not spending any money in gacha games, and I don't ever intend to. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm pretty safe around gacha games. I'm pretty lucky in that regard. It's just fun to see what you can get for free, and when it stops being fun, I usually just stop playing. So last night I sunk about half an hour into Dragon Quest Tactics, and it was everything I wanted it to be at a first impression. It felt very Dragon Quest themed, like all gacha games are kind of the same in terms of menus and like the way they handle different, you know, systems, but the coating of Dragon Quest game on that game was pretty immaculate. I was like, I can see myself spending a lot of time in this game. And then I noticed a little message in the bottom left corner of the screen, and I went, wait, what does that say? End of service? Oh no. I shouldn't have waited 2 years or whatever to try out Dragon Quest Tactics because it's dead at the end of February, for fuck's sake. But hey, if that isn't a message from the universe telling me to spend my spare time actually playing real Dragon Quest games instead of weird gacha mobile spin-offs, then I don't know what is. By the way, before you lose all hope in me, I did then spend a bunch of time reading after that. I'm weaning, okay? I'm weaning myself off of these things by starting a gacha game in a universe that I love. I don't know what I'm doing, okay? I've lost control of my life. Okay, that's everything I came here to talk about today, and that's knocked 3 minutes of rambling off. So hopefully you appreciated this video because I spent twice the time commentarying, tracking it. That's not a verb. Thank you very much for watching, and hopefully I will see you in whatever I make next.